because the minister needs to find an expedited way of looting. He has to loot quickly. The elections are just now, right? So,
welcome to Sunday World Engage, a platform where we engage South Africans of interest to the public life of our country. And today, our guest is Mr. Mthunzi Mdwaba, who has been on the news for all sorts of reasons. Mr. Mdwaba, welcome to our show and thanks for availing yourself.
thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Without wasting any time, let's get into the meat of things. You stand accused of trying to swindle 5 billion in the now failed deal with UIF, between UIF and your company Thuja Capital. What is your version? What is the story? What happened there?
Well, I stand accused of a number of things, Mawanda, but I'll try and keep my focus on this one.
Yeah.
But I also want to, maybe for purposes that you will understand later, tweak the opening line you made. You said for the now failed. It hasn't failed. I have a valid agreement.
Okay.
I stand by that because it is valid. Irrespective as to what accusations that we might have, allegations we might have, for me, it's a valid agreement signed by an accounting officer of the Department of Employment and Labor, who's also the accounting authority of the Unemployed Insurance Fund. He's resigned now, but it's his office that signed it. So now I can respond after correcting just that
That's
statement,
fine. Sure.
right? So here's the thing. I've always been, throughout my life, been involved in business as an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, and as an organized business activist. So I've held these two on a duality for maybe the last 25 years. And that becomes important later, irrespective of whatever other questions you're going to be asking me, because some people will know that one of the companies I bought was a company called Torque IT, Torqueit. And Torque IT was a company in trouble, small company, 2002, but big trouble in terms of financial situation, about 36 million in cumulative losses. And my partners and I participated in a management buyout and turned it around to be the most profitable and the largest high technical skills training solutions provider in technology in the African continent.
Yeah.
I think it's important to study because no one has actually said, who is this Mthunzi?
Yes.
Exactly, because you read things and it looks like people are deliberately just, obfuscating and creating smokes and mirrors, right? So we built this company as a training company, and it has a lot to do with Thuja, with the project that now is contested. And one of the things I learned from Torque IT very early on, Torque IT was a Cisco partner. We won Cisco Partner of the Year every year for 7 years. Was a Microsoft partner. We won Microsoft Partnership, I think, of the year twice in 5 years. I was the CEO. I was the chair. I was the majority shareholder. My other partners were both races. For South African purposes, I think it's important, black and white.
Yes.
Were partners. But what did I learn there? So other than winning Department of Labor, as it then was, awards for the programs we ran, we also were the first company who actually helped companies like Umsobo Youth Fund. I don't know if you remember, there was such a company a long time ago with structured training. I won, in fact, the biggest deal at that time, 2002, for 30 million from Umsobo Youth Fund. Even then, there was an issue. Hey, these black people, they're going to win a deal for 30 million. But what did we learn? Because we're working with SAQA, we're working with the NQF and whatever. I learned that the best we could achieve in getting young people into jobs was between 75 and 80%.
Sure.
Conversion from training to employability. No matter what we did, we couldn't exceed this 80% number. Everybody was excited, including my own colleagues and staff, that, we're getting awards from the Department of Labor as the highest company to benchmark such a big conversion. But my issue, which led to Thuja today, was that I said to the guys, if we're running a program for 1,000 young people, some of whom have done degrees, can't get jobs, So out of desperation, come into our programs because we are closer to the employer, right? We had clients that were in abundant. I have a problem that 200 of these 1,000 are not employable or not employed. For me, that's not success. Success doesn't look like that. I see it from the failure of not placing those people. Thuja. So many years passed, many years. Sold Talk IT in 2010, built other companies in between. I was now living half in Switzerland as the vice president of the International Organization of Employers. And as also the vice chair of the International Labour Organization. And I might also just mention, for purposes of this introduction, that I was the first African ever to lead the IOE since 1920 and the ILO since 1919 when I was appointed in 2017. But in that role, dealing with, in the IOE, 150 business organizations, BUSA in South Africa is one of the 150, okay? And then in the ILO, you deal with 187 members of the ILO in the United Nations. And because I was engaging with ministers and presidents and different kinds of, conversations that relate to employment and more importantly, unemployment, I started realizing what it is that was worrying me all along about that gap we couldn't close between 80% and 100%. It was that in most developing countries, we have this challenge of wanting to operate like developed countries. And South Africa has this problem of having like 30 to 35% of its economy being sort of JSE-led and big company-led, multinational and all of these kind of things. But there's this 65% that is SMME or informal. All the developing world is like that, by the way. So if you go to Nigeria, 95% informality. If you go to India, 95% informality. You go to Guatemala or Colombia, 65 to 70%. Then I realized that no, unless you actually have a disruptive, innovative model for the creation of employment in a developing country, we're never going to win, which is why South Africa, in spite of all the attempts we've made over the last few years, when we hit the financial crisis, the global financial crisis in 2008, 2009, I was already in the ILO. I was living between San Francisco, Geneva, and Joburg. We went up, I think, from 25% unemployment, and we got to about 31, 32% when we came on the other side, and we never could go back. And then we continued going higher and higher, and then when the COVID came, we went now to the 36s and the 40% and so on. So I realized that no matter what we do, as long as we structure things within the context of the toxicity of a market that works in a particular way and that defends and protects what it has, rather than being open to the creation without being worried about what you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Right? Then built this model. And I must confess that when I built the model, there were partners that were also involved along the way who contributed different parts to it. There was a time that I also thought maybe I am smoking something very strong and illegal. So I think maybe I should say it.
Yeah.
In fairness to other people who think I'm crazy
or
I'm trying to embezzle the country.
Yeah.
Right? And because the model is a Talk IT on steroids. But now you wouldn't know that until I tell you. And nobody's asking me this question until you.
Yeah.
Right? So Talk IT on steroids, what does it mean? Talk IT as a high technical training solutions company in the technology space.
Yeah.
Telecoms, a very big player with clients that range from Telkom to MTN to Vodacom to all the banks here, Nigeria, Kenya, everywhere. Talk IT was referred to as the coffee shop of the industry. Why coffee shop? Because if you wanted to be anyone who achieved anything in our space on a high technical skills level, you couldn't do it without Talk IT. Even ABSA, that did not want to be my client, all the other banks were my clients, would be sent to us via a competitor of ours. We would train ABSA, and then ABSA would claim that now it has these skills, right? So I was trying to figure out, how do I take a Talk IT in technology and multiply it 8 times in 8 different sectors that are projected for growth. That's really the genesis of it, right? Then I thought, okay, it's been 15 years maybe or more since Talk IT started. And then I first looked at which sectors would these be. We looked at aquaculture. And aquaculture, because it's not developed in the country, and you may know something quite interesting. I spoke 3 weeks ago at the Agri-SA Congress at Emperor's Palace. I was addressing all the farmers in the country. And I decided to talk about aquaculture and agriculture deliberately. Aquaculture is not very developed, even though it's a form of growing food like agriculture. The only difference is that the other one is on water, the other one is on land.
Yeah.
Right? But aquaculture is governed by the Ministry of, you'll forgive me now, I forget all these ministries. I haven't been in South Africa for too long since I came back, but I think
Forest and Fisheries.
Environment, something.
Environment and Fisheries, yeah.
Okay? So that's the one that covers aquaculture. But agriculture is in the Agriculture Ministry.
Yeah.
So the two don't talk to each other. In fact, there's even a guy who came to me from the Agri-SETA and said, is it possible you could help us with how do we motivate for these to be one, right? But I raised aquaculture also because as chairman of the South African Norwegian Association, I know that aquaculture is big for them in Norway, okay? And aquaculture became the one sector. Agriculture became the second one because it's still separate here at home. The third one was renewable energy. Renewable energy, again, hopefully for obvious reasons. It's a big growing area. And with the challenges we have here at home, I'm sure you would understand that we need to go big there. And then we looked at telecoms, fiber, broadcasting, and media. We looked at arts, culture, and sport. So I'm an entertainment lawyer by training. I used to run the music industry. I know the level of disinterest or the level of hypocrisy towards artists that the whole world has. South Africa being no exception, right? And my own son, who's also implicated in this embezzlement, I'm sure you may have picked up, they say there's a rapper who's also involved. Yeah, big deal. My rapper son, Lita, New Edison, who's going to be much bigger than AKA, by the way. I don't want to say that insensitively because AKA is no longer with us, but he's going to be huge, right? This rapper son. And then there is, the 6th one is the financial services.
Yeah.
The 7th one is health and pharmaceuticals. The 8th one is construction and property. These are the 8 sectors.
Okay.
Property and construction, I didn't want to include it first. Because even pre-COVID, I worked on this 4.5 years ago, by the way, over the years. Okay? And even pre-COVID, property was looking like it's going south. You know, no one really wants to occupy properties anymore. People are not buying properties that much. Construction is in decay. There's problems about mafia and construction. I learned here at home. People come and take over and do whatever. But I thought, if we are going to build an ecosystem, a Thuja ecosystem that has 8 sectors, and if I believe my own propaganda that I'm going to create over 700,000 jobs, it makes no sense that I don't have a sector that deals with infrastructure.
Okay.
Because then who's going to do it? Right? It's moronic to say, I'm not going to do it because it's in decay. I'm going to do the other ones. Right? Mining, as a difference, is in decay, but we didn't include mining because we can't create mines. Right? No matter how much employment we create, we're not going to create mines. But construction and property, you want to have, because that's where people are going to live, closer to where they work, and all of that. So we got these 8 sectors. And how is it supposed to work? And again, this is the question nobody's asked me, which is quite sad and tragic. So we have something called the UIF,
Yes.
Unemployment Insurance Fund. And I'm a labor expert. So I'm watching the labor levers in the country from a distance. Just before the COVID, I was doing 30 countries of flying. No wonder. Talking to people, listening, more listening and learning as I go along. So I'm watching it and I'm thinking, hey, this UIF is going to run out of money.
Okay.
Maybe not in our lifetimes, but it's certainly going to run out of money. And now the whole idea about being responsible as a citizen is you don't only worry about the things that will happen in your lifetime, right? But for me, watching it, I'm thinking electricity, this is exactly what happened, and we didn't listen. Water, the same thing is happening. We can't afford to run out of money. Now, here's the irony that grasped me. I'm thinking, this electricity and this water, they were all provided for an economy that was white and built around the minority in the country. But it was working. So even if we wanted to grow things so that they cover all of us, we needed to just do it in a structured way so that it still works for everybody. Same thing with the UIF. It's an apartheid inheritance, but it works, right? If our sisters and our family people are on maternity, UIF. If they get retrenched, UIF. I had a friend yesterday who asked me, says, do you know somebody at the UIF, they haven't paid? This is important, right? When people are between umsebenzi and life and creating the things that have brought you and I here to be the people we are. Because we need our women folk to do the things that only they can do, right? So I'm watching this and I'm thinking, we're going to run out of money. But I try and tell everybody we're going to run out of money. They think I'm smoking something even stronger than I thought I was smoking myself. Until, of course, the COVID happens. So now it's already, I'm skipping a few stages, but it's already in the mix now, okay? It's been adjudicated and all things are happening. And the UIF spends 64 billion on the economy. And all of a sudden, everybody says, oops, we're going to run out of money. Because nobody's ever paid even 10% of that before, other than Edgar's.
Yeah.
Remember, Edcon was given 2.7 billion that we never got back. Nobody made noise. Yeah. Because it wasn't probably the color that I am. I don't know. Yeah. Whatever the situation. But in this whole scenario, though, it was built for the UIF. So when somebody says to me, this company did not exist before, of course it didn't. It is a concept built to work with the UIF, purely. No UIF 5 billion, no company. Company must go and find something else to do, right? But it was a company conceived purely to deal with the issue. What is the issue? The UIF has 700,000 unemployed people on its database. 700,000. Okay? 80% of whom are on unemployment benefits. Okay? So we looked at this and I thought, if the country has a very big unemployment situation, on the Department of Employment and Labor database, we have over 6 million unemployed people. The majority of whom don't even have matric, over 70%, right? So that area is a difficult area. Why? Because no education. Secondly, they are the people who have now grown a dependency. They are part of the 17 million people that rely on social grants. Okay? So they're not too keen to leave their social grant, actually, which is quite evil by us, that we get people to be dependent. It's like giving people drugs, and you can't win them off, right? So they're not too eager to leave the social grant. So if you want to start with what in sales we call low-hanging fruit, you start with the 700,000 that has skills, they've worked, they just got out because they were retrenched or they were on maternity, they never went back, or some kind of stuff, right? So we thought, okay, we need to recruit from there. Why? Because every time the UIF gives money to the beneficiaries, it has less money.
Yeah.
But every time unemployment goes high, what happens to the UIF? It can't collect, right?
True.
So, simple scenario. You remember I talked about just before the global financial crisis? So if unemployment at the time, I haven't checked lately, if it was, let's say it was sitting at 25% at the time, UIF once upon a time was collecting 17 billion from all of us. 10 billion would go to the PIC, 7 billion would go to the people that need it, right? Fast forward, 40% now, unemployment, between 36 and 40%, thereabouts, right? Now, all of a sudden, it can collect 17 billion. If it's lucky, it'll collect 15 maybe. What happens with the 10 billion that was given to the PIC, which was for investment? It's no longer there. So, to invest, maybe now we'll invest, 7 billion. Why? Because the 7 billion you're paying to people is now 10 billion. Does that make sense? I mean, it's quite simple arithmetic, but people just don't want to.
Yeah.
Right? So you break it down like that. So in my mind, I was saying, not only do you want to solve the problem of unemployment by using 8 sectors that can absorb people who come from previously rich sectors that now can't keep them, like mining, okay? Which now, future of work and all these big words we use for IR, what do you want to do? You want to take that person who worked in the mines and move them across the chasm, take them into a sector that can absorb them. Say, for example, fiber. Maybe it's the closest to mining.
Yeah.
You say to the guy, listen, you come from Limpopo. Yeah. And you came to the mines because it's Gauteng, right? Yeah. But do you think you want to go home to Limpopo and be with your family? Probably yes. We as Thuja will encourage you to go to Limpopo. Why? Because we're going to look at your skills. We're going to say, what other skills do you have other than digging in the mine? We might find, surprise, surprise, that actually you're even an entrepreneur, but nobody cared because you're black and you haven't gone to school. Who's going to check that? You just came here to Gauteng to work for your family and do the up and down that most of our parents have done, right, in the past, right? But if you want to go back to Limpopo, we want you to go to Limpopo because we're going to assess your skill, then we're going to train you and convert what you have or don't have into a skill that will make you ready for the fiber sector. Okay? Then we're going to take you and plug you into our value chain that is national, including Limpopo. And once we plug you into that value chain, as an entrepreneur or as an employer, as an employee, doesn't really matter, right? We will plug you, and if you're a little company, we'll incubate you in the value chain. But if you're an employee, we're going to train you, do whatever we have to do, coach you, do whatever, so that you are actually able to be sustainably employed in that value chain. We only let go of you when we are sure you can survive on your own. We've introduced you to good partners. We've introduced you to good potential clients. We've given you the wherewithal, which everybody is failed in South Africa and in Africa. We create the most innovative ideas and have the highest level of entrepreneurs in Africa.
So in essence, that's the service you are going to provide.
In essence, if we were to oversimplify it, that's really not I was going to. You keep going to I was going to.
Okay.
I don't like this I was going to because you know me, I manifest things.
Yeah.
I believe in the universe. I believe in doing the right thing in a spiritual way and being in the light. It will happen.
Okay.
It will happen.
But what about the current blockades, such as the claims that there was no due diligence and that this 700,000 jobs were just a pie in the sky? How do you respond to those things?
You know, blockades are always there. Ne?
Yeah.
And these blockades, they make us better people. You know, can I tell you something very strange? I believe that everything is happening as it should.
Yes, yes.
Yes. As I'm sitting here with you, I'm inconvenienced, I'm upset, I'm irritated sometimes, I'm angry sometimes, very angry that we can do such tragic things to our own people. But when I'm calm and I breathe, I think it's actually happening the way it should. I see shifts. I see things that I think, I think I was meant to be part of a solution to that thing. But actually, no one sees it. There's no point. But let me answer you about the blockades.
Yeah.
So blockades, like the church, are man-made.
Yeah.
Yes. So spiritually, we all believe in something. There's some people who don't. My great uncle didn't, but the majority of people believe in something.
Sure.
Right? And no matter what you believe in spiritually, people tend to mess it up. Us,
Yeah.
the people. So the blockade is complicated, I wonder actually. So let me try and simplify it.
Sure.
Thuja, in my mind, is but a sideshow of a much bigger strategic thrust by some people out there. It's a sideshow, but it's a convenient show because it gives them the clutches to do what they want to do. So what is the big show? The big show is called a heist and looting by the very minister Mthunzi. That's what he's doing. He's planned this heist and this looting for a while. But he didn't know how to get rid of the DG. Because the DG may be called many things. One of them is conservative, one of them may be slow, but he's a bright, intelligent man who always considers how things are going to be done. And as the minister knows, he's even called him some things I don't want to say because there could be young people who are going to read this. But the minister would use certain words like, I'm going to try and refine it, to say, we nonsense you, you always have to be strict and apply rules to everything.
Yeah.
He would say to him, right?
Yeah.
Because the DG is a stickler for rules.
Yeah.
Right? Now, how do you then have a heist and a looting before the elections when there is somebody who's a stickler for the rules? How do you do that? You have to remove him, huh? I think it's come on. I mean, you have to remove the DG. He's the accounting officer. So first, you immobilize him. So he immobilized him in December. Now I know what I didn't know back then. The minister and some people in the ministry leaked information to that newspaper that started the story around about the 29th of December 2022, 11 days after we signed the contract, right? Released the story, created a platform for drama, right? For about 10 days, did not speak to the DG to say to the DG, what is this thing, this Thuja thing? Now, the DG would tell me much later that, hey man, I said to the minister, we're on holiday, it's Christmas. But I'm happy to come and explain to you how this is. Don't make this noise. But he deliberately made the noise because he had to make the noise. What was the noise? I'm suspending it, I'm referring it to Treasury, Treasuries, I'm going to cancel it. All the words that he used. That from a lawful point of view, you can't do. All of that is unlawful when you have an accounting officer having followed process to get the agreement right. So you remove the DG. So what's the next move? You remove the commissioner. So the DG is finishing at the end of November. You and I are sitting here. Watch. The next person to go is the commissioner. And he's going to be using these irregularities that nobody knows what they are. There are some irregularities in the processes, right? Okay? And I can tell you the head of the labor activation program could be another one who would be removed as well because she might also be standing in the way. She asks too many questions that people don't want to be asked, right? Now, what do you do with Productivity SA? You may or may not be aware, when the president renamed the department via declaration in 2019 from Department of Labor to Department of Employment and Labor, the intention was that the department is no longer just an inspectorate, labor, regulation-related kind of entity, that it actually is involved in the creation of jobs and making sure those jobs are sustainable. And when he did that, it actually worked well because it aligned with the Employment Services Act that actually creates Productivity South Africa and other entities.
Yeah.
Right? But Productivity South Africa is something very interesting. The board of Productivity SA is the accounting authority, not the minister. The board is the accounting authority. Now the board has this chairman who is a problem, me, right? First of all, let's deal with what the minister failed to do for 4 years till now. He failed to come up with employment policies that would give credence and give a reality to what the president had in mind when he changed the name. So there's no employment policy. I'll speak to you today. He's finishing his administration, the president, now. Right? No employment policies. Kude, as the Swatis would say.
Yeah.
Right? But what he's now done is that around about March 2022, finally, after sending many letters to him, me, my CEO, sending many letters to the Department of Employment and Labor, to say, come on, let's get this thing moving. We need to get employment policies. We can even tell you, as Productivity SA, how to put content into these policies, right? Now, along the way, he gets more and more upset with me, the minister. Gets so upset with me that he even decampaigns me from being the ILO candidate for the first. I was meant to be the first African to be the DG of the ILO. He decampaigned me with his friends, and we can come back to that if you're interested.
Yeah.
And he lied to cabinet. He lies a lot. He lies, that guy, right? Like he lied to Parliament just now. a week ago about the DG and whatever it is. He lies to cabinet, makes up all kinds of stories on cabinet, because at that time, I think, I'm assuming, by the way, that this is why he's upset with me, because I still don't know why he's upset with me. He shares a birthday with my mother, June 9. He used to ask me for favors for his kids at university. I used to chair the University of the Western Cape. When he's got a problem with his child or his sister's child, I've got the WhatsApps to prove. I can show them to you. Where I said to him, no, I'll introduce you to the registrar. And he says, no, Sabamat, I'm abusing my power. Right? So for somebody who would even do those kind of favors, I don't know what I did to the guy, other than to do my job. Because the only argument I remember is when I wanted him to sign our APP for Productivity SA in 2021, and he said no, he can't sign an APP because in my foreword to the annual report, I'm condemning his government. So what do you mean I'm condemning your government? I'm saying the truth as a chair, but I'm also suggesting how we change these things, right? So anyway, fast forward. So because I think he was getting more and more upset, it was getting clear that after the 22nd of March, all of a sudden there was an announcement that finally they're going to do what they should have done in 2019, 3 years late, to come up with a reconfiguration of the department so that they can start now being employment focused. Still no employment policies, but at least there was an attempt with an employment focus. Oh. In that reconfiguration, Productivity SA would get public employment services, PES, labor activation program, that's the one that's giving money to Thuja, and TERS, temporary employee relief scheme. All of them would come to Productivity SA, right? There's just one problem now. He can't get to the kitty if the labor activation program goes to Productivity SA. So he and his people were blocking and are still are blocking that this doesn't go to Productivity SA for as long as possible, right? Because labor activation program gets about between 2.9 and 3.1 billion per annum, okay, for projects, okay? Now, right now, it works for him because he's got his people, like, for example, the chair of the LNAC, a guy called Chifuta, Tulani Chifuta, is one of his buddies. So they approve these things together, you see? And now that he's got the DG out, and he might be getting the commissioner out, I hear today there could be an announcement of a new acting DG for 1 year. I hear it might be happening between today and the next few days. Because the minister needs to find an expedited way of looting. He has to loot quickly. The elections are just now, right? So the blockade, I'm saying to you, is much more about Thuja. Thuja is just a very a convenient vehicle to cause noise. You know, because when you say 5 billion, you give it to a black guy. It's like, what? You're going to give a black guy 5 billion? Nobody checks with this black guy. Say, who is he? What is he capable of doing? Is he doing something great or not? I think there are certain stereotypes like that. And the minister is a very skilled kind of cadre. Yeah. He knows to use the right language and the right platforms at the right time. Okay? Now, I don't worry about these. The only thing I worry about, two things I worry about. I'm not even worried about, I've spent a lot of my own personal cash over 4.5 years. Now that it's gone for 10 months after signing, I can tell you, but I think that's not part of his plan. I think he wants me to run out of cash, so I can't fight back because I've had lawyers. You know, he and I use his free stuff. I need state resources. I get letters from this one and from that one. But here's the two things that worry me. One is that my projects, which I hope you're going to talk about, I want to talk about the deals that are supposed to be funded by Thuja, have been waiting for such a long time. They call me daily. Another one called me in the car on the way here. They are losing money. They are losing their assets. They are losing the promises they've made can't be kept. They are panicking now. They are stressing. The one lady even sounds like she's starting to get dementia. She keeps asking me the same thing twice and 3 times. I keep saying, but I told you yesterday. I'm still waiting. I told you, you know. And that worries me because 2 projects, for example, in KZN, that are presidential catalytic projects. It's quite interesting. They're presidential catalytic projects. But the president is not asking. I don't know why he's quiet. The guy keeps lying about him. I'm told he's embarrassed. I'm told he's disgusted. Okay, I know why. They say he's done it with SACP for the election, so he can't fire him. I mean, really? SACP? SACP doesn't have votes. Who's going to vote for the SACP? I can tell him that. I'm sure anybody can tell him, but nobody's going to vote for the SACP. But I'm told the only reason this man has still not been fired, in fact, the only reason he made it back in the reshuffle was because the SACP did a deal with our president. Come on, right? But 2 deals. Presidential catalytic projects, they're invited when there's marketing. You know, I don't know if you know, there's something that Invest SA, TIC KZN, Trade Investment KZN, all of these DTIC will invite people, and then the president will say, how many presidential projects do I have? Then he'll say, so many billions. You see, these are the jobs I'm going to create, right? These guys, Shane, keep going dutifully, believing and very naively that we are the president's project. In fact, that's the one problem with Oriana Honeywell, who owns the Thukela lifestyle project in the Mandeni municipality. With letters from the Mandeni municipality, with letters, the premier wants this project. The project would create between 12 and 15,000 jobs. The investment by us would be 150 million. The IDC has committed. DBSA has committed. But you know how the DFIs work, right? They're not going to fund her till I fund. It's a silly situation that we're also hopefully going to change in the future, right?
Yes.
But I want to just give you the idea that between that and, I'll give you another example, Cato Ridge Dry Port, which is run by Sbu Mazibuko. Sbu runs a company called Inkanyezi Ezur, right? Again, we're funding 150 million there. IDC, DBSA are there. We came late, actually, Tina. It's not us who've created it, but they will create between 15,000 and 20,000 jobs. Between Oriana's project at Thukela and Sbu's project at Cato Ridge, we're talking about 35,000 jobs for 300 million. I want you to remember this figure, 300 million.
Yes.
Right? Why? Because the IDC has 5 billion that belongs to the UIF. I don't know if you're aware.
Okay.
Yes? Do you know how many jobs it creates? It creates, each job is priced at 350,000. If you do very quick arithmetic, you'll find that the IDC, in its best effort, can only create just over 14,800 jobs. 14,800 jobs with 5 billion. We will create 35,000 jobs with 300 million rand out of our 5 billion, which is why we've got 20 or 22 other projects waiting in the wings. I hope that makes sense.
No, yeah.
Right? I'll give you another project in the president's office. It's called the Presidential Youth Initiative. Let me give you some figures. The president, I don't know who advises the president. Actually, it saddens me. It really, really, really saddens me, because I think he means well. I hope he means well.
Yeah.
Because he looks like now he's quiet and Kulumi. I don't know why he's not saying anything, because he sees that this is a mess. Actually, this is very bad. He might think the Springboks are going to help him, and maybe the Proteas will help with the election. I think things like this are going to demonstrate there's no jobs. People are not going to be fooled anymore. Oh, I see, we need the Springboks, therefore we must have a heightened kind of sense of excitement and forget the real issues, right? In his office, with the Presidential Youth Initiative, he's got 23 billion. 23 billion. Built into 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. Between the 2 phases, I mean, don't hold me to the exact number, but it's in the roundabout figure. They plan to create 1.2 million jobs. 23 billion.
Yeah.
Okay? They say that to date, they have created just over 800,000 jobs. 680 something, let's say, is going to be jobs that, interns, they become assistant teachers and all kinds of things, these young people. And then the balance of about 100 and something thousand, they call it supporting livelihoods. I've never heard of such a thing. I don't know what that means. I think it's just good English for, we must call it something.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, supporting livelihoods. But do you know how many sustainable jobs are created at the end? According to their own report, 40,000. 40,000. Now, mark this. IDC, 5 billion, creates just over 14 and a half, maybe 14,800 jobs. The best effort they can have. The Presidential Youth Initiative, 23 billion. 5 billion multiplied by 4 plus 3 is going to create 40,000 sustainable jobs. Do you know what happens to the 600 and something thousand jobs, the ones that are interns? Let me tell you, tragic. Now, my daughter is a drama therapist in the UK, so she teaches me a lot about mental health. So that I just don't talk about it loosely. I talk about it from a knowledge point of view. Because this is what she does, my baby, for a living. She schools me in it. Now, when you take 600 and something thousand youth, put them in a project, and you give them a legitimate expectation that they're going to have a job, right? So they go into the job. For 1 year, they're employed as interns. 1 year. At the end of the 1 year, job paid. Job's finished. You must go back where you came from. You can't go back. No, Pella, I'm trained. No, job is finished. We need to take another lot now because they need another 23 billion to keep it running. That 600 and something thousand doesn't help the 23 billion to keep rolling. Right? Now, in that, let me tell you the opposite of what Thuja was born for. The 680 something thousand is going to go now to UIF to claim. Now they're unemployed. So the trigger for them to be in the UIF database is to work for a year. It's a smart actually scheme, I think. but I don't know what is happening. It's a mental health destroyer, right? So you go in, you qualify for UIF. But UIF Ukumbule works according to points, a point system.
Yeah.
So you need to be employed for a long time for you to be able to claim for a long time. This makes sense, right? But now, you can only claim for 3 months from the UIF. The cost alone of processing the 3 months that must be given to these young people is so prohibitive and such a waste. Just the cost of processing, right? But ultimately you give them 3 months worth of UIF payments. What do you think you've done there? Haven't you created a mental health? I think that's bad.
In terms of the due diligence,
I'm coming.
Okay.
I'm coming. But I need to Pelotea must explain it in a simple way so that understand this understand the landscape.
Okay.
There is no project out there that is creating real jobs that we can talk about. Ayikho njengamanje.
Yeah.
We bonile the midterm something budget policy yesterday. You know the golden rule of business. You don't budget for a loss. We budgeted for a deficit. And then we're saying somewhere in 2025, 26, it will reach, I can't remember, they use some big English word, a 77%, I don't know, normalization. How do you normalize it, 77%? And what makes you think it's going to come back when the whole policy statement doesn't say what you're going to do to create income? It just talks expenditure, wages, SOEs. But I issue ukuthi sizohamba siyokwenzani ukufaka imali, right? Due diligence. Now, so I told you this was created for the UIF.
Yeah.
It was created for the Department of Employment and Labor to be a vehicle. It's a disruptionist, innovative, and if I should say so myself, in the music industry, we say kick-ass concept. Okay? Yeah. Kick-ass. Now, why is it kick-ass? Because I think okay, let me focus. Let me not go on a tangent. So, when you have a concept, Facebook, Google, what is that thing, Elon Musk thing? That thing, Elon Musk?
Twitter.
No, before Twitter, he made his money from something else.
Tesla.
That thing, Tesla. He was given huge amounts of money by Obama. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
So all these companies, Facebook, Google, were given money by the state to start. Research monies and state monies. Because that's how the developed world creates magnificence, beauty of things and ideas and jobs. Now, when you have a concept like ours, which is called the Thuja Parallel Universe Ecosystem, because it's built on a universe that is parallel to the toxic market that, in spite of its best efforts to create jobs, has failed. So you need something alternative. You need like some kind of a detour to come back. So you need a detour, and then you can find a way and come back. When you build a concept, people buy into concepts, people buy into visions, right? So when people think of a due diligence, which is a concept that was designed, I think, in the 1400s, they think of bricks. They think, I must see a brick, I must see a building like this,
Yeah.
and then I must see profit and loss statements. Come and show me. And that's what a due diligence is in normal, everyday business. In fact, I can tell you that if people had done a due diligence on Talk IT with his 36 million cumulative losses in 2002, I probably would have run a business that was as successful as it was as well. So once you've bought into the concept, which is what the UIF commissioner bought into. So what happened? First of all, let me take you through what I've read, because I haven't seen the report myself. I haven't been given. Even as a productivity essay, I was told there's a conflict. The minister quoted what conflict means, but he doesn't show me the report so that I can check myself what this conflict is.
But isn't there a conflict? Thuja, this side, productivity essay, which you were a chairman of on the other side.
Good. Can you have a conflict with knowing about unemployment? So the more you know about unemployment, surely the better for the country, right? I mean, okay. So now I'll come back to the duties. Let me answer this question.
Yeah.
So the Employment Services Act, that productivity essay is created under, I think it's section